Background. After my oldest found out, my youngest had an affair with his brother's wife. My youngest child married her a year after he and his wife separated. 3 weeks ago, my oldest son, who was 56 years old, passed unexpectedly from cancer. My oldest son, 30, and his wife had been attempting to make amends with him in the months before his passing, but he had always made it clear that he didn't want anything to do with them. He informed me that they were unforgiven, and that his forgiveness would not absolve them of their guilt. I stopped attempting to make amends since I knew that he would become angry with me if I brought up the subject. I just continued telling my youngest and his spouse that they needed to move on and accept that he didn't want to be around them. I didn't advise my youngest or his spouse to respect my oldest's desires after he passed away. He was always quite clear that they didn't deserve to be sad during his lifetime or after his passing. My youngest contacted me yelling about a week ago after seeing his brother's obituary and accusing me of keeping him in the dark about his brother's passing. He informed me that I should have told him his brother had passed away and that I had deprived him of the chance to set things right. I informed him that his brother wouldn't have wanted him there, and that he and his wife had refused to go, so it would be insulting for him to even arrive. He blocked my phone and hung up on me. My wife told me that we should have given him the chance to say farewell to his sibling, and that she felt bad for not notifying him. He made it obvious that he didn't want them to come, so I told her that I would just think it was disrespectful of us to do so. She informed me that while she understands, she is offended that our youngest is upset with us, and that we ought to make an effort to get past things in order to heal. I informed her that our younger child's actions were unacceptable, and that I would not tolerate him disrespecting his brother both in life and in death. Our son blocked us, which is why my wife has been crying nonstop. She also started blaming me for it. Even if I'm upset, I don't think back on what I did or even recognize my mistakes. My younger brother should own up to his mistakes, not place the blame elsewhere, in my opinion. Not the fool. It's appropriate to respect someone's wishes when they take the time to make funeral arrangements and specify what should happen when they pass away. Your older son made it quite obvious that he did not want them there. Like you, I think your youngest should be held responsible for the terrible deed he did to his sibling. It's absurd how entitled this guy is. Either his younger brother is a complete narcissist or he is dumber than a sack of rocks. How will I ever get over the remorse I feel now that my brother is gone, even though I abused his trust in one of the worst ways imaginable? Will no one give me a thought? Deal with your consequences, you Judas. You just live the fool around and face the consequences style of life directly. Indeed, what was the younger brother's expectation going into the older brother's marriage? And I would be dead for him. And then he shuts his parents out rather than accepting accountability? Like the guy decided to exclude more people after learning that there isn't always a later. Do you know, OP, that he isn't the victim in this situation? Whoa, the instant he made the decision to have sex with his wife, he lost his brother. Besides, how could he blame you for him missing his chance to put things right? That was a betrayal from which there was no recovering. I'm sad for your wife. She worries that she won't get to keep her son, but she places the responsibility elsewhere. She must resolve her relationship with him without your help and hold him responsible for the things he has done. Since I turned 18, I, a 23-year-old woman, have worked in the same warehouse. I make enough money at it to actively save for a down payment on a home. I've made and sold lunches to some of my co-workers as a side gig for the past 4 years. Not only is my food more affordable, but it tastes better than anything we can get nearby. To be quite clear, this is not a work-wife, work-husband situation. These are co-workers, not buddies. We typically eat at the same time and location, the break room, because I sell them meals. Although one of my 30-year-old male co-workers got married early this year, he still bought lunches from me, which is typical given that the majority of my clients are also married. However, his wife called me earlier this week and asked, more accurately, ordered, that I cease packing her husband lunches. It was an odd exchange, but I just told her to stop asking me for lunches if she didn't want him to buy them from me. I then bid them a kind farewell. I texted my coworker as well, explaining what had happened and requesting that he inform his wife not to get in touch with me ever again. I kept selling him lunches and he kept buying them from me despite his apology and assurance that he would speak with her. His wife then proceeded to call me a homewrecker in a harsh text message. I simply emailed it to her husband and blocked her without responding. Once again, he expressed his regret, claimed he had spoken with her, and offered to continue buying lunches if I was comfortable with it. Yes, money is money, I replied. After that, when I vented to my flatmate, she called me a fool. He's not my friend, and I could live without giving him $10 a day to keep his marriage afloat. So, am I the fool here? Not the fool. The wife of your coworker is insane. You are selling food to anyone who will pay for it, not preparing her husband's lunch. By the way, you should confirm that you have permission from your employer to do it. The majority of companies forbid its workers from operating a personal for-profit company while they are on the job. Block her number and move on. You're not doing anything wrong in any case. She ought to get up a little earlier in the morning and prepare her husband's lunch if she is so worried about you providing it for him. I see nothing wrong with what you're doing, but please exercise caution. I find her to be a little bit of a bunny boiler. You never know when your tires might get cut. My thoughts were on her house, the tires, and the windscreen. Hopefully the lady is not so insane. OP. It is their responsibility to find a solution if their marriage is so weak that having someone else cook for him will destroy their house. However, at this point, you can end up with more hassles than benefits from having him as a customer. For that reason, I would think about turning down his business until he resolves his domestic issues. At my brother's 34 residence, I, 30 male, witnessed my sister-in-law, 31, go into labor. They may occasionally get a better signal if they didn't reside in a rural area and stroll up the lane. Rather than dialing an ambulance, my brother was meant to drive her to the hospital, but for some reason he lost it and drove off. I raced up the lane to phone 999 because I am unable to drive. The ambulance took an eternity to arrive at the residence because it took an eternity to get a signal. For crying out loud, I was on the verge of giving birth. In the end, she gave birth in the ambulance's rear. My brother had simply vanished for this entire period. After going missing for almost 8 hours, he eventually showed up at the hospital. It seems that he had visited our father's home before Dad forced my brother to visit my sister-in-law after learning that she had given birth. I screamed at him for being such an idiot outside the hospital. He explained to me that he was just afraid and had no idea what to do. I warned him that if he continued to act in this way, he would make a terrible father. When the child gets hurt, and it's his duty to get him to the hospital, what will he do? Will he simply abandon the child and head back to Dad's? He is such a moron. He broke down in tears and accused me of being a witch for treating him so badly. With him, I simply lost it. Instead of consoling his wife and telling her how foolish he was behaving like a child. Am I the foolish one? I see, he's afraid. Imagine being his wife, seeing her 34-year-old husband run off to an unspecified location for an unspecified amount of time, leaving her alone when her water breaks and she experiences labor pains. And then to learn that he had fled as well, spending 8 hours at his father's house. This man is unfit to be a father. He is not a mature adult. How deceitful. Holy shut. If I were her, I doubt he would ever have another opportunity to make amends. You are not the stupid in my opinion. Parenting is a big deal, and you'll never be fully ready even if you think you are. However, he simply vanished for 8 hours while his wife was giving birth. What if things became complicated? If his reaction to stress is to run away, putting his wife in danger, he has to get his act together and go to therapy. And if he doesn't, she needs to reconsider their relationship. The lives of her child and herself were in jeopardy. He might have been accountable for the infant's death in his first act as a father. It should be possible for someone in their 30s to manage a high-pressure position for which they have 9 months to prepare. In the first place, how did he manage to be married? I would never trust that man with my child again, and I would never feel safe leaving him in charge. Rose, my 19-year-old daughter, was always intelligent. Because of her academic success, she was given full tuition at a top local school. She has been living with me, attending school, and performing well academically. She started dating this new guy a few months ago, and I don't like him. I can see right through the charade. He betrays her time and time again, masking it with a broad smile and lofty promises. They are still dating, and she is now pregnant in spite of my cautions. I volunteered to cover the cost of the termination and to take a few days off work in order to care for her while she healed. She refused, saying that she would marry her lover and create a large, happy family. She'll stop going to school while he works to support them. He wants to move into my house. He works as a barman and does not attend college. She became irate when I laughed at this notion. She informed me that since he is unable to move in, I will have to take on more responsibility for the baby. She's always been an extremely intelligent youngster, you guys. I have no idea where all of this has originated. I advised her to move out as soon as possible and establish an adult relationship with the child's father if she felt mature enough to have, raise, and marry a child. I brought up the one child I want. My desire is to have no more kids residing in my house. I assured her that while I would continue to visit her and occasionally pay for diapers, I had no responsibility for this baby. I would be willing to support her through that process if she decides to choose adoption, which I'm quite sure she wouldn't. She refuses to speak with me. Her stepfather, my husband, is keeping his distance, but feels that I could be of more assistance. He stopped talking when I told him he was welcome to come over and see her. Am I the foolish one? Edit. At 19, I gave birth to my daughter. Her father served in the military, and we were married. Even so, I completed college on schedule at the age of 22, and our relationship was happy up until his death while serving in the military. My DA's judgment is being tainted by the fact that things went well for me. I don't think her filthy boyfriend is even able to provide health insurance for her or her child. That is a whole different situation. Furthermore, I refuse to allow her to live with me and retain the child. This will not happen. I'm not going to be a babysitter, and I really don't want a kid in my house. I'll occasionally buy gifts and attend birthday celebrations like most grandparents do, but that's about it. Whoa, what a hoot to be 19 and full of ideas about how everyone should be supporting her. You will intervene when she expresses a desire to move into your home. I have an approaching wake-up call, darling. You did not give your permission to join her large, happy family. Thus you are not the idiot. I'm hoping she gets smart and finds a way to continue her education. The likelihood of a barmaid, adolescent mother, and college dropout combining to become financially stable in the future is low. About 16 years ago, a friend of mine and her daughter were in a similar circumstance. She was given restrictions and told it was her one and only visit. Despite this, they still allowed her to stay. That same daughter and her 5 children still reside with them 16 years later. They've sent them out on multiple occasions in an attempt to support themselves, but it hurts their feelings to watch the children not being properly cared for or nourished. The children ask to return every time. It is a terrible predicament. A friend of mine offered an inch, but her daughter took a mile because she used her influence on them. After 3 marriages and 3 children, none of the children from previous marriages, she eventually lives alone, though my friend and her husband provide the funding for it. They turned into complete pushovers. My acquaintance and her spouse have spent all of their retirement savings and all of their leisure time caring for the children. Well done, OP. If you succumb to their trickery, you'll most likely become my friend. Does he wish to move in with me? My doubtful thinking questions whether raising his living levels is the main goal of the pregnancy. He believed he was getting a meal pass. It seems like your daughter is a little too protected. Take caution not to push yourself too far. Hopefully, he walks away the moment he finds that he can't get away with hitting your daughter. My mother-in-law, who is 59, was invited to the wedding of my daughter, who is 29, and her fiancé, who is 32. She persisted in trying to choose a wedding dress for me after I had already chosen one, and declared that I had, so naturally, I felt off. I dismissed it, being overly enthusiastic. She also attempted to persuade her son to select a sizable, elaborate cake that contained only 20% cake. However, he declined, stating, "I told him we already made all the arrangements, music, decorations, clothes, etc." On the day of the wedding, everything went perfectly during the ceremony. The meal and service were outstanding, and my spouse and I were drawn by an artist as we shared a kiss. Even though I was a little offended to have context, I didn't give my mother-in-law's plain white clothing much thought. The only person wearing the color next to me is her. I was intending to snap a picture with my husband later, when the time for photos was appropriate. We were standing in front of the camera. Other from the kiss, we didn't have any formal prior pictures together, but my mother-in-law entered the frame. I gently asked her to leave so that my husband and I could take professional pictures first. My spouse remained silent as she ignored him and stayed inside. I didn't get a chance to take a picture of us together alone, so I grabbed one of our pictures and added a Photoshop filter to remove her. My mother-in-law texted me after I shared it on Instagram, calling me disrespectful and emphasizing that family comes first in everything. I told her that I knew it was my wedding, but she wouldn't let me take a picture, just the two of us. My spouse finds my behavior unacceptable and accuses me of being overly emotional. Am I the foolish one? So, you are unable to acquire a single picture of you and your spouse without your mother-in-law in it. And your spouse believes that because you are irritated, you are acting inappropriately? Not to be the idiot, but I'm not really sure why you decided to marry this person when you knew from away that he was a mommy's boy. In actuality, your mother-in-law was genuinely introducing herself into an unwelcome environment. It's surprising that the expert photographer didn't urge her to get out of the frame with some grace, but instead you ended up with a picture you didn't like. You achieved the desired outcome. All right, well done. You can hit her with a few points if she tries to play the respect card, really wearing white to a wedding. Who else does it? Other people who are always in the spotlight and impose themselves on photos when they aren't asked to. Whether or not to be dramatic depends entirely on how it is delivered. Drama only arises when someone tries to undermine the limit you've set. Respect is reciprocal. I wish you well moving forward.